So it's been a few weeks and Jimmy Butler is still on the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't think any of us are really surprised because Thibs he's firm on keeping Jimmy Butler. Even though in all likelihood, he will leave at the end of the year. And when he does and the Timberwolves do poorly the next year, Thibodeau's probably going to get fired. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, the fact that Thibs rejected Kelly Olynyk, Josh Richardson, and a Miami first-round pick for Jimmy Butler, that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever, because that's probably the best return he's going to get. Josh Richardson is a promising two-way player, and Kelly Olynyk is a nice stretch big, albeit a little overpaid, but it's not terrible. It's like 2 years, $13 million a year. It's not terrible. And, it would contribute a little bit to the win now move that he's trying to do. And honestly, Jeff Teague, Andrew Wiggins, Josh Richardson, Taj Gibson, and Karl Anthony Towns is not a bad starting five by any stretch of the imagination. Now, it's not nearly as good as with Jimmy Butler in the lineup, but you have to give him up or else he'll leave for nothing at the end of the year. I would rather get something for Jimmy Butler than nothing. Now, Jimmy Butler got booed when he walked into the stadium. Well, as he was being introduced in the starting lineup, he got booed by the home crowd in Minnesota. Rightfully so, honestly. He's causing a lot of drama. And the question is, did Thibs make a mistake by not trading Jimmy Butler? Could this really wreck the locker room in Minnesota? Because Jimmy Butler has been going at Karl Anthony Towns this entire time, calling him soft. And in practice, you've heard the story. Jimmy Butler took the third strings, I think it was like Luol Deng, a two-way player, and somebody else, and beat the starters. I mean, that alone is pretty crazy. Either the starters were not trying, or Jimmy Butler really is that competitive and or good. Jimmy Butler put up 23 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block, and 4 steals in the Minnesota game against the Cavaliers. They won 131 to 124 or something like that. And it was on bad efficiency, but, that's fine. Whatever. I mean, they wouldn't have won without him. And he was completely right when he said, "You effing need me." When he said that, everybody knew it was true. And there's just no denying that, because evidence last year suggests that the Timberwolves would have been like a 10th seed without Jimmy Butler. So I understand why Thibs wanted to keep him in that regard, but I just don't understand rejecting that deal. It doesn't make any sense other than he's too attached to Jimmy Butler. But if Jimmy Butler stays the whole season and this problem is fixable, then congratulations, because it's very unlikely. But if it happens, good for the Timberwolves. Even Jimmy Butler said it. It could be fixable. But does he think it will be? No. Because he said that he is all about winning, but he doesn't think some of his teammates are. And, he didn't name names, but we all know he's talking about Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, which they're both getting paid like $28 million a year. And they're not working as hard as he is. Even though they're more talented than he is, he said, they're not using their God-given talents, and that just upsets Jimmy Butler because nobody's worked as hard as he has to get into the league. Well, I don't want to say nobody has worked as hard, but he has worked so hard to get in the league and excel in the league. So it just upsets him that they aren't trying as hard as he is, which I understand. Cat sometimes looks like he lacks effort in general on defense, and that's not okay, especially from your franchise player. He's a great offensive big, but if he could play defense, Karl Anthony Towns would be so good. He'd be one of the best big men, one of the best offensive big men to ever play the game when it's all said and done, especially if he could get some defense. But Cat is still very young, so we have plenty of time to figure it out and see if he'll develop the way that everybody wants him to. Hopefully, this wasn't a big mistake by the Minnesota front office, because Jimmy Butler going at Cat this entire time could cause Cat to get upset and, maybe he'll play bad, or maybe if things come to worse, he'll request a trade. He'll say, nobody in this franchise has got my back. Nobody's saying anything when Jimmy Butler is coming at me. I'm sick of it. Trade me. I don't think that's entirely impossible. Actually, I think it's very possible because he's got his extension, so he's got his money, and why not just go play somewhere else that wants him and a franchise that will have his back? I think this is just my personal opinion, but I think Thibodeau needs to be fired. I think Minnesota needs a new coach. I think that having a coach who is president of basketball operations never works out because evidence from the past suggests that it's just not a good idea, and it's obviously not been a good idea with Thibs. But Jimmy Butler's still on the Wolves. He may make it to the trade deadline. I hope that the Wolves don't get bitten in the butt by this deal, but it's kind of looking like it will be.